So much, Vandita and Amrita, for spreading so much grace around. Well, as we all know, we have industry experts with us today. So for RICS, that is Rishihood University Collaboration and Innovation Summit, this prestigious event promises to be a hub of innovation, collaboration and meaningful dialogue between industry experts and academic professionals. And it would be an honor as for the industry experts getting felicitated by none other than our Chancellor, sir. So here, I'd request Sir to come on the stage and felicitate them as I call out their names one by one. So I'd request the experts to come on stage. We have Rahul with us. Now I'd like to call Vikas on the stage. Now I would like to call Lucky to please come on stage. Now I'd like to call Piyush. Last but not the least, I would like to call Alok sir to come in. We're done. We're done. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, and to all the experts. Thank you, sir. Well, who might have not read our Chancellor sir's names on newspapers, headlines, or not seen his interviews or debates on news channels to television? Well, needless of introduction, we have Suresh Prabhu sir with us, who is also our university's Chancellor. He served as Minister for Commerce and Industry, where he highlighted areas such as trade promotion, boosting domestic manufacturing, etc. He then served as the Minister for Railways. Under his leadership, Railway transformed from a slow-moving behemoth into a fast responsive organization. He also got featured among the top 3 Indian leaders of the future by Asia Week magazine, and astonishingly, now we have him as none other than the Chancellor of our Rishihood University. Well, evidently there can be a never-ending series of introduction of him, as for all the ways he served to our nation. But now, as I would request the audience to give huge round of applause as I invite Sir on the stage to address all the learners and everyone present here. There's just a little request from you, sir, as the learners in a flourishing corporate world, and with you being a commerce student too, so we request you to address the aspects of being a good entrepreneur and leader in 21st century in this very session. Yeah, please.
You did a very good job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So if you decide to make a career into speaking, that will be a good entrepreneurship. So thank you, my young friends and all my colleagues, for such a wonderful time that I spent since night before, and I've been here for more than 24 hours, and really very, very enjoyable time I spent here. I will envy you, all of you who stay here, who work here, who spend longer time than what I did on this campus. And just now, when this young leaders were felicitated, they are giving a tulsi tree, right? I don't think a tulsi tree is needed on this campus. Because tulsi normally has to supposed to take a negativity away. Here so much of positivity, why do you need tulsi here? So this is a very pious, interesting place with right ethos, kind of infrastructure that many would only hope they have, and the kind of dedicated faculty, the people who founded it, the founders, one of them is here. And I think this is the right kind of a setting for all of you to really start your life journey together. My dear friend and the Vice Chancellor was telling me, you should speak about your journey to you. I said, it's the wrong thing to do because I'm finishing my journey. And how can I talk to those who are going to begin their journey? And begin the journey in a place which is the right place to start your own life mission. As we always say, well begun is half done. So therefore you are at the right place, right campus, right people are actually guiding you, mentoring you, and you are in the right country at the right time. I'm much older than you, all of you. I mean, all of you, I can say without exception. In the next 3 months, I'll be 70. Not being a young boy or young girl, need not hide my age anymore. In any case, even if I hide, you can always find out from internet. Just, oh, you lied. You said you so many years ago. So, I've seen India when people used to look down upon us. People will say, you are Indian means like that. Today, India has attained a place of pride in the whole global community. I will not say whole world is enamored by India. That's a wrong statement. I will also not say that we have become a superpower. That will be absolutely wrong way to say that. But what we are right now, where we are on the way of achieving and realizing our own potential. We are becoming a confident country of confident people. And that is all because of what? Because of people of India. See, India's story is people-driven story. India's story is not unlike China. China has actually happened, Chinese growth, unbelievable growth. China is nowhere in the global history, any time in economic history of any country in the world, that country has become $18 trillion in such a short period of time. And if you go by some other parameters, China is already ahead of US. In terms of foreign exchange reserves, in terms of production, in terms of exports, in terms of volume of international trade. And now, worrying thing for us is in terms of filing intellectual properties. China is still second, but all filing intellectual property is happening at a rapid rate. And when you have intellectual property today, that means your future is secured. See, when you are doing something, an invention today, that means the amortization of that will happen over a longer period of time. And you are actually preparing a future. So China has achieved that. But India, unlike China, is not state-driven economy. It's all individuals of India, people of India who have made it possible. And therefore, once you start unleashing that hidden talent within ourselves, we'll realize what we are. And we stop looking down upon ourselves. See, why do people look down upon you? When you don't have confidence in yourself. When you don't respect yourself, how do you expect others to respect you? If you don't respect, मैं तो कुछ भी नहीं कर सकता, तो लाइफ में कुछ भी नहीं कर पाएंगे. मैं कहूँगा मैं कुछ कर सकता हूँ, उसका मतलब नहीं मैं कुछ भी हासिल कर सकता हूँ, लेकिन संभावना तो बढ़ेगी. और जो मेरे पास करने की काबिलियत है, वो तो बाहर आएगी. तो I think we are at the right country, as I said, at the right time. So right institution, right university, right time, right people. So जब भी कहते हैं सब कुंडली देखने के बाद सब अच्छा है, लेकिन मंगल जरा रॉन्ग पोजीशन में आ गया था, तो आज वो मंगल भी हमारे अच्छे पोजीशन में है. So I think we are really at the right time, and therefore I wish you really a great success in your individual endeavors. I always tell people, because we are very impressed with the way you are actually comparing it, really very impressive. And she was telling me speak about others. I'm not going to speak about any of that for a reason, is that you know more than what I know. And number one, I'm really telling you this. Don't get me wrong. People ask me many times, give advice. So I said my best advice to people is don't take anybody's advice. And I'll tell you the reason for that. I'm saying it with a purpose. I'm not saying don't take anybody's advice. You should take advice. You go to a doctor, you must take medical advice. You go to a lawyer, you must take legal advice. You don't know how many career options are available. You must take career counselor's advice. You must do all that. You must take architect's advice to construct a building. You must do all that. You must take your parents' advice. No one else can help you better than your own parents anytime in life. So you must do all that. But I'm saying personal, what you want to do yourself, only you can know. Nobody else can know. And therefore, if you don't follow your own mind, you'll never realize your own potential. I have always said this, but there's Paulo Coelho, no, that one who wrote, that Brazilian writer. He said, pursue your own dreams. I've read most of his books. I forget now the titles. And this one was very interesting, which is just a shepherd becoming and is pursuing something. Point is, once you start knowing yourself better, then only you know what path you should take in future. And knowing oneself better, nobody can give advice. How can somebody tell you you know yourself better in this particular way? So this is where, in fact, if you really look at it, you started a program with a prayer by closing eyes. I think start your life with open mind. Started a prayer, we have to close eyes, but now you must do it with keep eyes open to look at opportunities, but also keep your mind open, that's more important. And in fact, if you really look at it, our philosophy, the spiritualism that we all talk about, and something to do difference between spiritualism is not to do with ritual. This is something much beyond it. And that spiritualism, what does it teach us? And particularly our own ancient philosophy, which is tried and tested because it has come from thousands of years of distilled ideas. What does it teach you? That knowing you is more important, and for knowing you, you do meditation. That's why you close eyes. Of course, there is some form of meditation. You keep eyes open and do it. That doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you can really know your mind through this process of meditation. But today, I think you are in the right place, as I said, and the entrepreneurship, which some of you are learning, you cannot learn entrepreneurship actually. But your mind can be trained, and so many ideas can be fine-tuned, so many wrong notions can be dispelled through this process of learning that you are doing here. Sometimes we all believe, because we read one book of how the GE was successful. So Jack Welch wrote that book, how he was successful. And then subsequently, Jeff Immelt, during his time, the company almost melted. There was nothing wrong with Jeff Immelt actually, what he did was nothing wrong. But he had so many businesses that he could not. For now, the GE has become in 5 companies. So GE is no longer one company now. It's different verticals have been spun off, different companies have been made. But point is, if you had followed the same model, what first GE had thought about, then GE is no longer in Fortune 500, it's not even maybe in Fortune 10,000. Or it may not be even in Fortune because their fortune has gone. So it may not be in any fortune list. But why it happened? Because we thought then only there is one successful model. There is only one way we can succeed. And that's one of the biggest flaw that we have in our own ideas, that we can pursue one thing and therefore success. अभी गुप्ता साहब ने बचपन स्कूल चालू किया, तो मैं भी जाके बचपन स्कूल करूँगा. वो मेरा बचपना होगा, मैं बचपन स्कूल चालू करूँगा, अभी जाऊँगा तो. लेकिन मैं कहता हूँ कि you cannot have only one model, and he succeeded doesn't mean I will succeed the same way. And some success, like any other way, has a lifespan. Idea has lifespan, like the medicines have. And therefore we must actually try to reinvent and look around the world. That's why I was saying, keep your eyes open. To be a successful entrepreneur, your mind should be open, but more importantly, eyes should be wide open. And once you look around the opportunities are lying everywhere. There is one business has died, doesn't mean new 1,000 business will not be born. And that's the beauty of nature. You always see there is, like, for example, your Vice Chancellor was in the US, he left a very lucrative job and came here. Because he wanted to serve the society more than making more money. And he will tell you in US, they'll call it fall. First time I heard that word, I said, why, US has fallen? What happened? There's a fall in US, somebody told me. I said, what happened? What, something fall? So the fall season, when all the leaves fall, they call it fall. But interestingly, when fall season comes, there is nothing on the tree, barren. Then comes winter and now we think, oh, trees have died. And suddenly spring comes and everything comes to life again and we are same thing, same tree. In a matter of months it has changed. That's what is the beauty of life. Something is dying and something looks like died, but there is something else which is coming up. So in entrepreneurship, you should always know whether it's a spring time or a fall time or a winter time. You should try to understand what business will work at what particular time. And that's why I'm saying eyes open and mind open. I think if you do that, business has tremendous opportunities. But my little bit selfish advice, again I'm contradicting, I say don't take advice, but my selfish suggestion, if not advice, suggestion, is that always do something which is going to help the society. And you'll find it interestingly that what is good for society will always be good for your business. You'll be always just try to see any successful business anywhere in the world, there is something correlation with the society. If society benefits, what is society? Is a marketplace. What is society? Is people. And we always want to sell something to market. So if society is not benefiting, how can the product be successful? So I think you must therefore make your business idea relevant to society at a particular time. And societies are changing. Like the season is changing, societies are changing all the time. Mind changes, habit changes, thinking changes. So you must always attune yourself and think about that. But entrepreneurship is the only way we can go forward, maybe even social entrepreneurship. In any other areas, entrepreneurship is needed in all areas. And that, what is entrepreneurship, etc., you have no more than you can teach me one day because you are learning it. But I'm saying that's one thing you should always be looking at. As I was saying, education is not something which I'll speak to you because you are already getting it. But I will tell you that India right now is positioned either by way of divine desire to really move in a very different and very positive direction. The world is, because for there's no choice. You must always remember one thing. We are no friends and we are no enemies. That should we always remember and keep it in mind. Everybody has their own priorities. Everybody has their own interest. And when the interests converge, you feel we have become good friends. But it's not friendship which is coming out of love for you or to help you, but to help themselves. And there's nothing wrong in that. That's the reality which even Chanakya had said. So this is the reality from time immemorial. So we should try to, therefore in today's world, it's conjuring in a way that their interest lies in India's promotion. People are scared of China, wary of China, and also their interests clash because now China is no longer the China that it was in 1949 when Mao did his long march. Today China is a different country altogether. So US is worried about now. In fact, the other day in the US Congress, and your leader in leadership, and he's right because he's leader as well as a dean of leadership. So he'll tell you in the US, they have a real very intense congressional hearings wherein they really grill all the administration, including the ministers. So they go and they are to be deposing before the Congress. So one of the top generals of the US Army told the Congress Defense Committee that China is becoming so advanced in technology that it will take some time for us to catch up in terms of military technologies. So China is a cause of worry for everybody. And that's an advantage for us. Europe is going down, and this was going down for a long time. And that's also law of nature. Because once they thought that we'll rule the world, and they actually did. A very small country like Portugal, which is one of the poorest country in European Union, was one of the strongest country in the world once upon a time. Their currency was a reserve currency once upon a time. Nobody will believe it today, which is now the US dollar. So it's law of nature that Europe is going down. The Europe is going down. US is also in a serious problem. Today there's a debate going on in US as we speak about the debt ceiling in the US. Because now Congress is controlled by the Republicans, the House is controlled by the Republicans, that's their, like our Lok Sabha. And now the Republicans always believed in austerity. They felt that fiscal conservatism is necessary. And today the US has 126% of public debt to GDP ratio. 126%. So US is also in trouble. When you have so much of debt, where are you going to do these adventures into Vietnam or in Iraq or Iraq 1, Iraq 2 and all different, Iraq 10, it not will happen anytime now. So in that situation, India has a great advantage. So we must leverage on it. We must work on it. We must make sure that that band India increases and improves. And all of that can be done by people like you. So I will not speak much, but I will be happy to answer any question because we have to also go for some other meeting at 12:30, right? So I think we have a little time. So if anybody wants to ask question, please ask me. I can be very happy to answer whatever I can. Yeah. You take a mic.
So, very insightful session. Thank you so much. I'm Rahul. I'm founder of GetWork. So, essentially, we are into college and campus placements. We are helping campuses to increase their internship and full-time job opportunities. So, my question is related to entrepreneurship. So, how have you seen entrepreneurship evolving with India?
Sorry?
How have you seen entrepreneurship evolving with with how India is evolving, and what do you think are going to be the major policies that will push this much more further, and what do you think is the most pending policies?
You just look at it. What is the definition of entrepreneurship? Somebody who takes risks, somebody who has ideas, somebody who has perseverance, somebody is going to chase his ideas to the logical end, and most of the time he will fail. See, entrepreneurship is not always a success story. That we see one success means there are 10 failures behind it. And it's true for anything. Like for example, when you develop a new molecule for a pharma company, when one molecule succeeds, that definitely means at least 20 have failed.
Yeah.
And each molecule costs about $700 million to develop. That's about 6,000-7,000 crores. And many times they write it off, not at the end of it, but sometimes midway they realize now it's not going to do much headway because clinical trials, etc. will not yield much result, so they will. So entrepreneurship is like that molecule. Some succeed, some fail. And most of the time the failure is higher than. But does it mean you should give up because you have a failure? What does that pharma company does? It fails into one molecule, so they go into another molecule.
Yeah.
And they succeed so much in that one molecule that whatever losses they suffered into those
During the testing
infant
period.
mortality, as you can call them at that rate, they all make more money from that. So entrepreneurship is also getting over failures. See, this is also very important. So if you keep that in mind, I think India's entrepreneurship has always been there. Just imagine, our age-old times, India got connected to the rest of the world because of trade. Of course, not that Indians were doing trade, some foreigners were also coming here. In fact, trade is the reason why we are enslaved also, because we had a lot of money. But those days, a trader, when he goes, probably the good chance was that he'll never come back.
Yeah.
There was no mobile phone, there was no letter, nothing. So even the family would not know. He has gone after several years whether he'll come, whether his kids he'll not even recognize them, because when he went away it was 1 month old, now it is 10 years old. So entrepreneurship has always been there in India. It is not that it was not there. They were risk-taking, all these abilities. But even today, the more number of entrepreneurs in India, whom do you think they are? The farmers of India. See, there is no one, if you go by this criteria that I told you, risk-taking, hard work, failures, this is a farmer. So entrepreneurship is in the bloods of Indians.
Yeah, that's true.
So almost everybody can be an entrepreneur. Now the question, and he is already an entrepreneur. Only question is, so-called modern definition and parlance of entrepreneurship need not necessarily be the only criteria to judge who is entrepreneur. Only question is how many of us are willing to take risk into doing that. See, today what has happened is, there was a safety factor, which always people want. We all don't want to go out of a comfort zone. This is normal human nature. So for a long time, we had some opportunities for, you do entrepreneurship. One is because you like it, but other is the source of livelihood. For a long time, we had a safety factor in terms of government jobs.
Yeah.
Then a lot of jobs came because of private sector. It's like I'm a chartered accountant. So when I started my practice, when I became chartered accountant, till I made, of course, blunder of joining politics. Till that time I was an entrepreneur. But at that time, not many were joining industry. But then what happened in the last few decades, private sector grew so fast, particularly after 1991, that jobs were available in private sector also. So now an entrepreneur always has this dilemma, that I can go for a comfort zone because I get a job, or I should really try to take all the risk and try to do hundreds of things and all the time working, because when I leave my office, I'm out of it when I'm working as an employee. So today entrepreneurship has one good point is that a so-called job market is shrinking. So therefore now the entrepreneurs will be pushed into it also. They are always in the genes, as I said, because they have always been there. But because of now that so-called safety factor not being available in abundance, as it was some generations ago. Because that time government jobs and the population also was small. When I got BCom 1973. I give this example to many people. It's a true, not even a word of exaggeration. Each and every person from my class got a job moment they became BCom. Everybody. Not a single person remained unemployed. Even I had an offer of a job. I didn't take that because I didn't want to be working. But point is, that was how it was 73. So about 50 years ago. Today there are no jobs. So people will be forced to do that. So entrepreneurship will be also driven by lack of alternate opportunities. Otherwise it is there within us. And therefore I think this is the best time for an entrepreneur in India to do that. And so-called, we always call it, that we think startup started some 10 years ago. Startups have always been there. It is not a startup. I always give the example, in the Stone Age, somebody who discovered the first must have really pointed, he also was a startup. He didn't go for a patent, he didn't go for a funding, he didn't go for an accelerator, he didn't get for an incubator. Doesn't mean he was not, he was also a startup. So point is, we always have this now today, if you ask me now today. It's a great opportunity for people because market has widened. Earlier, the storage, for example, you could just use that how far? Only in the proximity of where you are living. Or say 20 years ago, where you will sell your product. At best, city, state, maximum. Now country then became, because GST, we can create a countrywide market. But today, world is a market thanks to e-commerce. So you can sell it anywhere. So entrepreneurship is a great opportunity today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So you already spoken many aspects of entrepreneurship in this speech. So you have already spoken about a lot of avenues about entrepreneurship as right now. What do you think is the future of research as entrepreneurship?
Research.
Yes.
Research?
Yes, sir.
Research in entrepreneurship.
Yes, sir.
So it's a good point. But it all depends on what you mean by research. Better. It all depends on what you mean by research. See, actually, for example, if you don't do market research and launch a product, then also it's a failure possibility. If you do a proper market research and then know what market tests are, and do it, very good possibility of a success. So research of what kind is important? Now, if you are asking me a question as a research as an entrepreneurship, whether you can do research as an entrepreneur, actually it's also a good idea, honestly speaking. Because what has happened is, I'll give an example of a pharmaceutical company. See, what happens is, any pharma product that you develop goes through various critical stages. So finally, end of it, you see as a formulation available in the marketplace. And then you get it in the pharmacy, where it is prescribed by some medical practitioner. But a back-ended part is so complex. So now, if you do some kind of applied research on some of these areas, there will be so many pharma companies willing to buy it also from you. Say, for example, now genomics will become an important aspect of our modern medication. If you have studied a particular travel that of disease takes from one generation to another, or particular caste, I'm saying caste in a different way, caste because we marry within the caste, we have inbreeding and therefore something can happen. If you study this pattern like this, or some people, their vocation is such that they don't travel much, that's why some of the hunters they will have a different profile of disease. Somebody who is only doing a sedentary job will have a different. Suppose you have some research of this kind, and try to work on that research. Some findings you have made, and these findings are such that will be helpful to a pharmaceutical company to work on a product. Because as I said, a failure is far more in case of pharma company. So when you have done something back-ended part, and there will be so many takers for it. This is one part of research. The second, in financial market, you'll be surprised that in financial market there are many players. So who actually do trading, they're traders and everybody. But there are actually research in finance is market research. It's very, very, now not marketing research of that kind. I'm talking about doing equity research of some of the companies, what they're performing, what they're doing. You'll be surprised they get more money than sometimes even the traders. Because traders will actually do a trading, but where to invest, where not to invest. And sometimes you always make money not by buying a share. You always make money by selling a share. So when to sell is equally important. So when you are coming out with this, as now these corporate results are not going to be as good as they should be. So that's another research in which you can do something like this. And research and entrepreneurship, I'll tell you, I'm just adding one. Social research. So if you really look at it, the problem, and that's really an entrepreneurship which I hope there are some takers for it, but the necessity for it I'm explaining. That, see, for example, government make policies. I don't think most of the time the policies are made without any time devoted to it, because there's no time, honestly speaking. You cannot blame the government for it, because we are in a hurry, and we don't have a system of organic relationship with the organization, unlike in the US, where the think tanks are there, they will do thinking, etc. So for example, you do now research. I was just speaking in the morning, that's what I'm saying. I was speaking on a program online for Ekal Vidyalaya. They do some amazing work in tribal areas. Now suppose if that work, you talk to them and try to understand what the tribals want. So the tribal department here won't know what tribals want. So there they are decided what tribal want, their own imagination. They want this, so they'll give them this. So if you do research of that kind, of course, that's why I'm saying I don't know how many takers will be there for this. But the necessity for this is huge, because social research will also be useful. As an entrepreneur, you can do it, and hopefully one day somebody or the other may use it also. But so research as an entrepreneurship is absolutely, there is a relevance, no doubt.
So since you talked about farmers, so I work with Nand Baba Dugh Mission as an industry advisor, which is 1,000 crore program by union government, which is to enable market access to farmer produce and enable them on value chain. And I also happen to have observed three things when it comes to entrepreneurship. The three aspects are India, US and China. China is a closed economy. US and India are kind of leaders in that. But if you see in India, most of the startups or the entrepreneurship that are kind of storied are more on the tech side of it. The social entrepreneurship, which is directly impacting farmers or the companies which are working on the bottom of pyramid, the only policies which is enabling more or less is the government policies, the subsidies to that. Whereas the real success probably would come when the venture capitalists also focus on this kind of unfundable funding the projects that they want to fund. So is there any government intervention to bridge that gap, because you might be working with the policy aspect
See,
as well?
you know, I'll tell you, this is, when you look at venture capitalists, we think venture capitalists have some access to money which has no accountability. See, where the venture capitalists get money from? See, somebody has put that money from somewhere, one fund, some philanthropist. If it is philanthropy, it's a different thing, but not always. So they are also waiting for returns. See, this is always try to understand. The venture capitalist or venture capital is something which is also has a cost. So they also have to service that cost. Somebody has provided those funds, and he has to also ensure that that particular expectation of the investor is also met. So if unless there is a completely philanthropic fund, which has nothing, no expectation of return or something like this, the only return they'll expect is a social return, because that's why they're investing into social capital. So they are not investing into that. Then it's a different thing. But otherwise, you know, to expect private entrepreneurs, private venture capital to come into areas like this is a little difficult. So that's why, see, government is doing it is not favor to anybody. What is government? Government collects taxes. Now this month government has collected 1,75,000 crores as GST. What is GST? Each and every person in India pays GST. Why? Because GST is on all consumption of products. And somebody is consuming something or the other. Even if you buy a matchbox, you are paying GST. If you buy anything small or big, you are paying GST. So everybody is actually contributing to that GST pool. And that's now the indirect tax, which is GST, is even more than the direct taxes, which is income tax. So therefore, government giving part of that money for such activity is nothing favor to people. This is the job of the government. That's why they're collecting money. And they're actually part of that money may not be very large, but still disproportionate in a way that a tribal who is paying GST, his income is 5,000 rupees a month and he's paying GST of 100 rupees because all aggregate purchases that he makes. And somebody living in urban area paying on the similar quantity 100 rupees, just imagine the inequity part of it. So even tribal population or farmers getting some subsidies from the government is something which is their right to get it. It is not something which should be considered as a favor by the government. And there are of course some scholars who will always say that subsidies are bad. I always feel subsidies are not good or subsidies are not bad. You must go by what actually that particular time did. In fact, I was opposed to subsidy when I was a power minister. I had actually made a law saying that no subsidy should be given on power, free power. But I said you must give subsidy. Again, I contradicted in the same law by saying if you want to give subsidy, government must pay for it. Don't ask the private companies to generate electricity and give you free electricity. They have a cost to the electricity. If you want to give free electricity, you provide in your own budget. Give that much money that you want to give subsidy to the utility, so that can be given. So, oh, Excellency, please come. Excellency, please come. So we are very honored by the Deputy High Commissioner of Zimbabwe. He's here and I'm very thankful to him. So what is the so-called subsidy is neither good, neither bad, depends upon where you apply it. So therefore, you must look at it different. But I don't see any reason why farmers or the so-called people should not, they must be, in fact, I would say, given subsidies for many, many more years or maybe for a long time, till such time that they reach a level of development. Yeah. Kitna ho gaya? I think, if you don't mind, you also said, no, so you will be the last, only because we have to go for a live. I'll come some other time, I promise you. Hey, please, you also ask first. Achha, you also, okay, three of you ask. Okay, all three of you ask.
Now you are a Chancellor of Rishihood University, the dot is connecting. And so about the market and about the entrepreneurship, you mentioned there that The connectivity is the major power strength of the China that it hold $14.85 economy in 2020 USD, and now it is 70.93. So, like you develop the national logistics policy. So I got there some there is problems and finding out what are the challenges. So India ranked 44 in logistics performance index.
just थोड़ा सा नजदीक लीजिए ना माइक थोड़ा सा माइक थोड़ा नजदीक लीजिए नजदीक हाँ no I can hear you better हाँ
71% freight transportation depend on road, and the CO2 emission will become 441% rise according in 2050. So railways now not in a picture. So we have to bring into the picture. And sir, inland water transport system of India is not so developed. And sir, one more thing, like 71% trucks are not fuel efficient. And now the about like India average road kilometer of the truck is 300 kilometer and global is 500 to 800 kilometer. And one of the major point like delay at the checkpoint in Indian economy. So we are losing 9 to 23 billion dollar like in the cost. So what are the Indian government policy for these flaws and challenges we are facing right now?
So you are absolutely right. So this is something which is as you very well articulated. It's a question relates to logistic one part, but also the impact of logistic on climate because of the greenhouse gas emission. So we really needed, unfortunately in India, we didn't have an integrated logistic ministry. So we don't have a ministry yet, but luckily when I was a commerce minister, Prime Minister created a new division called logistic and added it to the commerce ministry. In fact, I have drafted a first logistic policy, logistic action plan, and then it was released recently by the Prime Minister, but it was done some years ago. So point is, in that what points you are saying, we are actually trying to touch it. So you are absolutely right, we have 7,600 kilometers of coastline, not just small. But in addition to that, we have a lot of rivers. So this is not just coastal transportation, but if you look at inland water transport, which has a huge potential. In fact, I was dealing with this project when I was a minister under Mr. Vajpayee of interlinking of rivers, in which this was one of the component was inland waterways. In fact, they were inland waterways, functional inland waterways. In fact, the first war of independence that we fought, that time East India Company, there was no British government, they brought the soldiers from Kanpur, to Kanpur from Calcutta, from waterways. So we had that. So we have to work on that. And you are right, either inland water or waterways for that matter, whether inland or coastal. Waterways, railways are far better in terms of emissions than the road transportation. So vehicular transportation. The good part is now we have an integrated logistic policy and action plan. So we are working on some of these multimodal transport ideas. So already under working. Secondly, the fuel itself, because the cost, why the pollution comes from vehicle? Because of the kind of fuel you use and the efficient engines that we have for managing the fuel. So, welcome. Thank you. So we need now, so we are moving in that direction. So now again hydrogen is coming, which can again have a very positive impact on mobility. So I think all of these things are very important. We are right, we should have done it much earlier, but at least now we are doing it. But we still have a very big problem because our emissions per capita may be very low, but in terms of global emissions, we'll be now number 3 in the world. So it's not small anyway. So we have to work very, very aggressively on reducing the emissions. And transportation, as you correctly pointed out, is one of the major intervention we really need to put in a positive way. हाँ बोलिए सर.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I'm Ganga Ram Kushwaha. Sir, I'm pursuing my
थोड़ा
BBA.
नजदीक लीजिए नजदीक से. Just take it closer to your.
Okay. So, sir, my question is that, sir, as of now, sir, the world looks are so uncertain, sir. Sir, AI, artificial intelligence revolution, the whole world, sir. Yesterday, sir, I gone through newspapers. It's like, sir, research done by Traction.com, sir. There are more than 1,000 startups within last 4 months. So it's like, sir, what's going to opportunity going to come in the future with the artificial intelligence for us as an entrepreneur?
क्या है part?
Entrepreneurship with AI.
See, even, of course, I'm not an expert on that subject, but honestly speaking, see, AI is a reality, and it is just a beginning of what we are seeing now of AI. So you'll see different versions, like always we are seeing the different generations of technology emerging and happening. So AI is going to impact the world in a definitive way. Now, only question is how do you make it positive? That is something. But in entrepreneurship in AI, will have huge potential. I cannot exactly guide because I am not an expert on AI, honestly. But you can certainly look at it as a great opportunity in terms of AI as a source of, and for sure. But of course, that doesn't mean what AI, what to do, etc. We'll have to study it a little bit and work on that.
Hello, sir. Namaste. My name is Aman Sharma. I'm from Rashtam School of Public Leadership. So my question is, how can we ensure policy consistency in respect to Indian business houses, so that when there is, power change, then we don't, label them into camps, like because of their proximity to some political party or other, and instead, how can we ensure that we see them as brand India and support them?
It's a very important point. In fact, I've been in the government for a fairly long period, so I used to always say that I was invited by a very big investment summit in Bangalore. I'm talking about 15, 20 years ago. So I told the industries organization that what you should do is you always come and lobby with the government. So I said, start lobbying with the opposition. I said, why? Because opposition speaks, the ruling party always speaks the right language. The problem is when the ruling party becomes opposition, they change the language. So if you can change their mind when they are in opposition and before they become ruling party, that would help. But it's a very difficult thing, honestly speaking, anywhere in the world. In a democracy, you fight elections on issues. And what are the issues? See, there are many elections are never won on positive issues, very rarely. It's always a negative campaign which actually works, if you really look at it. Say even in US, the last campaign was Biden won, not necessarily because he's Joe Biden, but he won because the Trump was campaigning against him. So there was much of the votes that went to Biden also because they wanted to vote against Trump. So the normal discourse in elections is always some negativity. If you start, say, for example, if I start saying, oh, I like this policy, very good policy, people will say, then why should I elect you? If this government is doing so well, very well, let them continue. So first thing I have to say is that is the worst policy they pursue, even though I may pursue the same policy after, which always happens, actually speaking. Because where do they invent policies? See, there is something like, are there any such policy banks available all over the world that, there are just untapped banks, like some mineral deposits available, that like in Zimbabwe, there are huge deposits. So it's not really ideas that don't have like this. So we'll borrow some same thing. So ultimately, finally, there are only limited bandwidth of so-called ideas. So therefore, when you come to opposition, so then the question is, therefore, point you are saying is so important, that how do you bring stability to this? So I had made a suggestion. I had made this suggestion to the Election Commission. I think I just mentioned when I was a power minister. At that time, his name was Sarraji, he was the Chief Election Commissioner. So I actually did something which that time looked impossible. I went to all the political parties and all the chief ministers. And that time when we were in the government, we had more opposition government than in our own government, when Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. So I convinced all the chief ministers, and most of them were opposition, as I said, to stop giving free power. And the first time till 2014, when 2004, when UPA came to power again, there was no free power in India from almost 2-3 years. When the first time UPA came to power and the YSR Reddy won election in Andhra Pradesh, he took oath in front of lakhs of people on the open ground, and he said in front of them, I am filing the first file, no more free power. So then others started doing it. So point I am saying is that time what I did was, I stopped it. But I was always knowing that change of government will, because Chandrababu Naidu was supporting our idea. And he has stopped free power. So what was the campaign plan for Vice Reddy that time? Free, I will stop free power. And that's why first paper side. Now how do you do it? So I went to the Chief Election Commissioner, Gil Sava, abhi naam hai uska pura. He was a Chief Election Commissioner. I said, why don't you make in manifesto of political parties that let them not guarantee free power? He said, this is political parties' problem. I said, but you are a regulator for elections, so why don't you do this? Of course, he had his own compulsion. It could not happen. I am saying this is one way of ensuring that to maintain some sort of a stability to policy. But it's not easy, honestly speaking, not only in India, anywhere in the world. For example, now in France, there's a big debate going on about pensions. So I think the Labour wants to come to power. What they will do? They'll say, oh, I will going to give you free pension. Now it's happening in India also. So a new pension scheme, which was launched by during when we were in the government actually, when Yashwant Sinha ji was a finance minister, contributory pension. Now all state governments are saying we'll reverse it. So how can we stop it? And they are making the election promise. So this is a challenge, not only in India alone, anywhere. So only way it can happen, in my opinion, one is, as I said, some regulation like election commissioner working on it. But that again will become difficult because finally, why will election commission has a sanctity as long as they operate within some framework. They go beyond also, nobody will listen to them. But that is one part. But second, I think is some sort of an enlightened society. When people themselves will start realizing it, then they will start saying, oh yes, I don't think it is nonsense baat kar rahe, free denge, kaise free denge. Actually, at that time, again, my experience I'll share with you, and you talked about farmers. I had met almost all the farmers' organizations when I was introducing new law, Electricity Act. All farmers' organizations, without exception, told me we don't want free power. Because we know free power means no power. So actually speaking, the farmers know what they want. But because we are running out of ideas as political party, we want to woo somebody. So because we don't have any positive idea that can be energizing the minds of the electorate, free denge, ye free denge. So this is not going to work. As Prime Minister said that day, Revdi culture, I agree, this is not a way it can sustain honestly. But I don't have any answer to how that can be done. I don't know. Thank you.